So our land acknowledgement. The Creator gifted us with this land that we are blessed to share and care for together. The Calgary Catholic School District acknowledges that the land we gather on, Mohkinstsis, is the ancestral territory of the Siksika Sitapi, the Siksika, the Kainai, Piikani, and Amska Piikani. We acknowledge all First Nations and Métis of Treaty 7 lands, the Tsuut'ina and the Yithkabie, which includes Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney. The Calgary Catholic School District commits to advancing reconciliation guided by truth, respecting treaty laws, and humbly walking alongside First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. We recognize all who live, work, and play on these lands and who now call this place home. And let's take a moment, take a deep breath as we center ourselves. This prayer is provided to us by our district for our PG Day. Please join me in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, source of all wisdom and giver of all holiness, continue to fill us with knowledge and truth as we seek to grow in our vocation. Grant us kind and gentle hearts, inquisitive minds, compassionate souls, insight leading to action, hands that create a loving world, and faith in all we do. Animated and built by your grace, may we use our gifts humbly and generously and bear faithful witness to God's love. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we did a quick introduction earlier of our team, but this is our entire team supporting students, EAL learners from kindergarten to grade 12, as well as our English language development courses, which we have in Division 2 and Division 3, led by Aurelia. Our supervisor is Sonia Stapleton, and Holly Sheely is our director. Just a reminder, as I said, this session is being recorded. So at this time, please make sure your cameras are turned off, your mics are muted, and save all your questions to the end of the session. We'll provide with an opportunity to ask your questions by unmuting or putting them in the chat. And as always, the consultants are more than happy to address any of your questions that you have, even if you're driving home and you think of something, or next week. A reminder, the board priority that we're focusing on this afternoon is student success. So in all that we do on a daily basis, our instructional practices, our programming, our assessment, in the forefront of our mind, we are programming for our students in order for them to find success in all academic areas. And a reminder of our TQS. As teachers, we are always ensuring that we are accountable in our programming and making sure that the learning of our students is accessible, but no matter what their needs are, and that we are always staying current in our research-based practices and using strategies to support all learners. The agenda for today is we are going to take one of the science units, Science Living Systems unit, just as a mode to show you an example of how to program for your EAL students. We are going to show you benchmark connections. We are going to continuously throughout the session connect those into high impact strategies, making literacy connections, building background knowledge, and providing multiple points of access so students can access the content, as well as making some suggestions for hands-on learning, and of course, how do we address formative and summative feedback. At this time, I would like to pass it on to Stacy, who is going to talk about some benchmark connections.
All right, thank you so much, Dina. What I'll do right now is I'm going to look at bring all our attention to the benchmarks and just a little bit of a reminder of what we will be showing you in the next slides to come here will be aligning with our benchmark outcomes, our language outcomes. So looking at the strands, understanding which strand you're targeting, the listening, speaking, reading, and writing, having an understanding as well of the levels of support for the students that you will be working with, whether they are level ones through to level fives, they all will need a specific type of support from intensive to targeted to limited. Then along the left-hand side corner within our benchmarks, you see the competencies. So that's looking at vocabulary, sentence structure, and cohesive devices. And these are all the outcomes that you want to really familiarize yourself with when you are supporting EALs in your classroom so that you are able to embed targeted and intentional activities and assignments within your class that will support building the language development of these students. On the next slide here, we also are looking at the outcomes specifically in our case today from the science curriculum, and these are curricular outcomes for living systems. So being able to kind of have an understanding of both of the outcomes, language and curriculum, will really give you the most beneficial starting point to developing some of these activities, embedding them into your practice, and then working through them with your students. It will also be able to give you the ability to do macro and micro scaffolds. And this is some terms that we have taken out of the Unlocking Multilingual Learners Potential book that we have been studying. And the macro planned scaffolding is those that we do sort of at the start of the year, maybe at the start of a unit. It's more of that long-term vision. It is us setting those clear, attainable, sort of SMART goals as well, and then sequencing out our lessons and building upon. The micro scaffolds, on the other hand, are those that we make in the moment. We have a student's reaction or response to something we're teaching, and in that moment, we are gathering information, whether it's on if there are gaps in knowledge, if there's gaps in some of the language proficiency that we can really use on our end to be able to program, okay, what will my next steps look like? What will my next lesson look like? Even in this moment, what could I be doing to really support that student and scaffold for them in order to engage more meaningfully in the curriculum, but also to be able to support that acquisition of language? And so that really does bring us also to how we provide multiple access points for our students, understanding where they come from, what their background knowledge is. And this goes for our EALs as well as our native English speakers to really be able to leverage the knowledge, the experiences that they bring into the classroom, but also to support them as the different styles of learning that they may have, so that we can meet them where they are at and then build upon that. To the left here, you can see we have our EAL Continuum of Supports. This is a document that is available on our EPG site, and this is a document that is linked here as well, where you have for each of the levels of support, as mentioned earlier on in that benchmark slide, whether it's intensive support for our level ones and twos, down to targeted support for our level threes and fours, and then limited support for our level fives. This provides you with different ways in which you might be scaffolding within the classroom for your different groups of students, chunked by level. We have generated also from all of these documents that we just referenced, the benchmarks, the curricular outcomes, as well as looking at our continuum of supports, some high impact teaching strategies. And these are strategies that will support the acquisition of knowledge, they will support the development of proficiency in English. They will also support students in building background knowledge, enhancing their comfort and confidence in talk time opportunities within the classroom, engaging in discussions, sharing opinions. And we will be showcasing this throughout our session today in providing you an activity or a lesson or an idea of a suggestion that you could use in the classroom, and then showing you, okay, from these high impact strategies, which ones did we target and how simple it might look in your classroom for you to also target these within with your students. So at this time, I'll pass it on to Kim, and she's going to walk you through some of the literacy connection. Thank you so much, Stacy. All right. Sorry, we just, technology sometimes with us. So if anyone knows me, I love myself a picture book. So one of the great ways that we can really start any science unit, math unit, or a lesson is to begin with a literacy connection. So for example, this picture book, The Very Impatient Caterpillar. And so, what's great about a mentor text or a picture book, it really gives an access point for all of your learners and a way to kind of begin your topics, your lessons in an easy and fun and entertaining way. And so, a literacy connection can provide a lot of opportunities to build that background knowledge for your students. It provides those visuals. We're going to talk a little bit about poeming, and we're going to do a little poem here today. It gives you access to building that vocabulary piece while also targeting those connections. So again, like Stacey had talked about with your benchmark hat and then your curricular hat, you're kind of hitting two birds with one stone kind of idea. So when you begin with a literacy connection, before you would even open up that mentor text, you can begin with some predictions. So you can see there are some sentence frames there where you could have those posted and you can start to talk about, well, what kind of predictions do you have? What do you think is going to happen in this story? It's a great way to be like, well, what do you know already about caterpillars? So tapping into what is some of their background knowledge. This is also a great opportunity to draw out some of the vocabulary that they already know. So when you ask them, what do they know about caterpillars? What kind of that vocabulary comes out? And it's also a great way to start to get curious. So, what would they like to learn about caterpillars as you guide them through this science unit, for example? Obviously picked this picture book, The Very Impatient Caterpillar. So you would want to really highlight, does everyone understand what that word impatient means? And so this gives great opportunities for word work to build that understanding. And again, you're pointing out that vocabulary that they're going to add to their toolkit. So as you go through the picture book, you will build that vocabulary. But one of the great things, ways to build your background knowledge is to look at it through many different lenses. So you could have your literacy connection to begin with, but we might also want to supplement with different articles, visuals, videos are such a great tool. And then for our EALs, this is great because you can actually on YouTube add captions in their home language. Just be conscious that they do have literacy in their home language, but you could put this on your Google Classroom before you even look at this in your lesson the next day. And then that gives an opportunity for your EAL students at home to preview this content in their home language, or if they don't have that literacy in the home language, their parents can support them. And again, you're building that connections with the parents at home where they have that opportunity to talk about the content that you'll do in the classroom. As well, you could bring in visuals that are real. So like right here, we show the life cycle of a butterfly. Well, you could find like a real picture of the life cycle. As you are building background knowledge, you're really focusing on that high impact strategy of pre-teaching vocabulary. So one of the great things that I like to use is the alpha box. So that's the image in the center of this slide. So you could have that as a building with a class. So you could have a large one. You can actually ask Roger. He will print these for you. If you're not sure about that, you can reach out to us and we'll get you in contact with Roger, but he'll print them out on big pieces of paper so that you can have it up in the classroom. And it could be like a visual word wall with your students, and you could add to the vocabulary as you go through the unit. Or it could be a mini one, which we have linked on there, where the students could have their own individual ones.
The great thing about the stepping into science units, I know they're only done right now for K-3, but 4 to 6 is coming shortly next year. But they have some key terms, key vocabulary cards. So you could just click and then you could have those printed, and then maybe you have them on a key ring where they could maybe draw a picture on the back. And again, that's reinforcing and helping to build their vocabulary for that unit. Now, right now there is a K-6 science vocabulary that is tiered for you already. But if you are doing a unit where or a topic in your classroom that doesn't have that tiered vocabulary, you can actually go to Microsoft Copilot. So it's an AI tool, and you can just type in there, can you give me a list of tiered vocabulary words for, and just add in your topic. And so you can see on the left-hand side, I did that into Copilot, and this is what it gave me on caterpillars. So it's a great way to kind of tier that vocabulary for all of your EALs in your classroom. As you begin to continue to build that background knowledge, I always like to keep things fun. Maybe you start with like a little T-chart where you put like, what do you know about a butterfly versus a caterpillar? Or you could play games, and this is a great way to incorporate talk time into your classroom, where you look at, would you rather be a caterpillar or butterfly? Again, gives those opportunities to build that vocabulary and that background knowledge around the topic that you are exploring. So this is an example of a poem. So I just took a picture from one of the picture books, and I just kind of went through. And so basically PRIM, picture word inductive method, is where students will actually just label the picture. And so this is a great way to build that vocabulary and can be used as a pre, during, or post activity. It can also be a summative or a formative form of assessment. But you'll see like a level 1 or 2, they might start by labeling things with colors, or they might label things in their home language if they have literacy. And then you can really build it up. So you can see I put some of our action verbs in different colors. So it's just such a great tool to use in your classroom for all learners, but especially for those EALs, because it can really differentiate between the levels and where they're at. So here's just a little bit more information about the PWIM method. Again, it is, you could use a picture book to PWIM, or you could also have a image from, for example, the Stepping into Science. They have an image bank where you could have it and print it. And again, it could be something where you do as a whole class, or maybe it's something like a chat station that you go around the classroom, or you can use real images. And again, it's building that background knowledge, it's strengthening their vocabulary, and it hits all of your benchmark strands. So just taking a look, just that easy couple of high impact strategies that we did in just using a literacy connection. We can see we used home language. We were really focusing on pre-teaching our vocabulary and highlighting that we are activating and building that background knowledge. So I'm going to now hand it over back to Stacy, who's going to go over some vocabulary.
All right, sounds good. So just to build off of what Kim did introduce us to here, and that was introducing vocabulary, targeting some of the vocabulary that might be taught in a unit. Give us 1 second here, sorry. All right, we're back. We're going to look at how you would use some vocabulary scaffolds in your practice. So as mentioned, we do have some already tiered word lists in the science curriculum. This was done a collaboration between TNL and the EAL team. And these tiered vocabulary lists are by unit or by theme within the science curriculum. So as we are focusing on living systems today, we have showcased here your tier one vocabulary, those foundational words, those entry level words to accessing the curriculum and the larger concepts of the unit. And then moving to tier three words, which are those subject specific words that are specific to this unit. And in between are those academic vocabulary words, which are words that students are going to be seeing across curriculum, across courses, and at all grade levels. And they refer more to the sort of abstract, connective words, words that do look at concepts such as describing, discussing, looking at investigating. And so ways to include this into the lessons that you are creating in your classroom is looking at doing living word walls. And, gone are the days that we have word walls that we've kind of posted at the beginning of the year that we don't really engage with, that becomes sort of that white noise, the visual white noise of the classroom. Students don't use it to be able to support them as a tool. We're now looking to shift that and actually make that into an activity, even part of a lesson, to allow and welcome students into helping create them, but then purposefully creating lessons or activities where you are engaging them in those word walls. We do have a link to our our interactive word wall session that might be able to support you through some ideas, but it's also allowing those word walls to be meaningful to students. So allowing them to have dual language. And of course, we're not expecting you all to be, the experts of every language of every student in your class, but welcoming them to be able to leverage their home language. Many of our students, depending on what their journey looked like, may have had schooling in home country, quite formal schooling, and already do have the conceptual understanding of some of the vocabulary words. And so now they are just going to be sort of bridging it to English to help them develop the language. Also, too, when you are introducing vocabulary, something we're going to model in the next slides coming up is the Kate Kinsella's vocabulary instruction model. And on the next slide here, you'll see that we have showcased a few living word walls, some anchor charts. And with the use of these, you can see that some are created by the teacher, some have, that realia in it, real life objects, artifacts that are embedded, pictures and visuals, some have home language. And again, this would be something that we don't just put up and leave up as like an art piece, but rather daily, regularly, we are planning and engaging students in, selecting some words from it, maybe putting them in alphabetical order, maybe comparing and contrasting with a peer. And with our EAL students, this is a great opportunity to provide them practice, model, and provide them with some sentence frames. So it is that low risk environment where they're maybe just meeting with a partner, talking about some of the concepts, some of the vocabulary in the classroom, rather than whole group. And it's also paced out in a little bit of a easier way for them because it's led by their peer. It's modeled by their peer as well. On the next slide is where we are just wanted to showcase the vocabulary instruction by Kate Kinsella. And there are 7 sections to this, or 7 steps to this, for really strong introduction to specific vocabulary. And one would start with showing students the word. So in order to teach a word, students have to physically see how it's spelled out, what it looks like. And we know in English there are so many rules to the written language and also so many exceptions. So sometimes it is very important for students who are learning the new language to really see sort of those letters, the phonemic pieces of it, how we would break down the word as well. And from there, this comes the opportunity for teachers to pronounce the word. So for many of our students, including native English speakers, if it is a new word, it's very important that the teacher show that modeling of how to pronounce it and engage the students in practicing and repeating that pronunciation as well, so that they can connect the sounds, the letters of the word to how it actually sounds. Step 4 is clarifying the parts of speech, and this aligns very nicely with our new curriculum, where we're looking at phonetic awareness, we're looking at morphology, we're looking at the parts of speech, but also how the word is broken down. And providing students with synonyms, antonyms, and explanations will give them the most meaningful understanding, authentic understanding of what this new vocabulary word is. Providing visual representation, as Kim mentioned, through images, through videos, might be a great opportunity, and maybe with those scaffolds in place with the subtitles in home language. And then giving opportunity to assess students' comprehension. So having that feedback loop almost embedded, where you're checking in, connecting to see, okay, what of what I have shared and taught did they gather? Were there gaps in the understanding? Is there a little bit more that I need to fill in and be mindful of for our students? And on this next slide, we've taken a word from the Living Systems curriculum, and it is a subject-specific word, metamorphosis. So even looking at this word, it might be something for an EAL student or even a native English speaker who has never seen this word before, has never had exposure to this word, would have trouble even sounding it out. So that is why it's so important that we as teachers are modeling it. So if I were to be teaching metamorphosis through Kate Kinsella's model, I would first start with saying, okay, everyone, we're going to learn the word metamorphosis. Then I would have students repeat it with me, maybe turn to a partner and try it out. You might have some giggles with maybe mispronunciation, and that's part of the fun of it. We could start with breaking the word down. If you see in the top left-hand corner, looking at that word study, the meta meaning after or change, and morphos meaning form or shape. And by just providing the definition from the dictionary, it might not really be very meaningful to students. So the dictionary tells us it's the process of transformation from an immature form to an adult form in 2 or more distinct stages. So for some students, sure, they may connect to that. From there, I would probably provide them with maybe a simplified version of that. And you can see right across the way on the right-hand side, what is metamorphosis? There's a bit of an image there and a breakdown of the definition. Change of physical form, structure, or substance. That might even be broken down further for our level 1s and 2s to access structure, form, substance. I may provide them with an image, and you can see right at the top end, that's showing metamorphosis from a caterpillar moving into the chrysalis, then coming out of that stage, emerging as a butterfly. On the left-hand side at the bottom, I have a video that is time-lapsed, and it's showing that transformation as well. So it's really giving meaning to what this physical word on the paper looks like, but what it means and looks like in real life, what the concept of it is. Another important piece is when we are teaching new vocabulary, new concepts, for students to really find meaning in it, is to give them not just what it is, examples of this new word, but also non-examples, what it is not. So you can see at the bottom next to the video there, I have also embedded an image of how a caterpillar develops, or sorry, not a caterpillar, a grasshopper develops, and they do not go through metamorphosis. They start as a young grasshopper, and their form does not change, they just grow larger. And so this is how you can show a non-example. And then on the right-hand side corner, I also have embedded for the activities that I want to include in my loop is some opportunities for comprehension, to assess comprehension. And so we could make this really fun. I've embedded an opportunity for students to do sort of like a storyboard, a comic. Maybe they draw out, sketch out, add some little labels. This is where maybe that poeming piece can come into play. They could do that in home language as well. But from there, straight away, you'd be able to know if they do understand the concept and the meaning of that word. And also maybe provide them with a game. So what is the same, what is different, have them set up in little chat stations or talk time groupings, supported with sentence frames to be able to engage in that language. Okay, so here you would take the vocabulary and you could use it again with some graphic organizers in your classroom to engage students to build word walls within the classroom or even personal word walls. The alpha box Kim already referenced. And then the FRAIR model, which you have maybe seen if you have been in any of our or a DL presentation as well, where you are presenting language, a new vocabulary word in the middle there. We picked a tier 2 word, observe, and then you would have students write a definition. You would provide them with one. They could do them in their own in-home language or a version of it that would connect more for them. Some facts and characteristics, examples, and of course, non-examples. Okay, and so even with just those pieces that we did, the word wall, the interactive word wall, and then also the practice of vocabulary, we've hit a few of those high impact strategies already. So you can see the visuals and realia, building bilingual dictionaries through that FRAIR model, looking at home language and leveraging it in the classroom, pre-teaching some vocabulary, and then using anchor charts as references for learning throughout the classroom and throughout the activity. Okay, and so now Dina's going to walk us through the walking curriculum as well.
Thanks, Stacy. Okay, and so as Stacy has so well done for us, she outlined many different strategies that can be utilized to support your English language learners within the classroom, within your school, within your 4 walls. Now we're going to go beyond your 4 walls. How can we take our learning and take it outside? As the weather is improving, there are many opportunities to take learning outside. And I know I will also share other resources where you can bring the outside into your classroom as well. With the Walking Curriculum by Jillian Jetson, she has 3 books that are out right now for different age groups. And what her books provide, they're excellent books where they introduce the walking curriculum. The purpose of the walking curriculum is more of an interdisciplinary resource for K-12 educators. It takes the students outside into their community. It's allowing students to make connections to the communities. It's allowing students to interact in a low risk environment. And that way the learning is very meaningful for them. And so in these 3 books, or even you might even have them in your library, in your learning commons, because I know with the science curriculum, these were recommended as the new science curriculum was rolled out. So please check in your building for these resources. If you're tech savvy, if you go hashtag get outside or hashtag place matters, you can follow different educators who are using the walking curriculum as well. And within there, it contains, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 different walking focused activities and routines. And teaching our students that when we go outside, so if you take your students outside and say, we're going to go outside, when students think we're going outside, they're thinking of unstructured activities. They're thinking of running, playing soccer, going on the playground. And so it's almost as if we have to change the mindset, our mindset as educators and the mindset of our students, as when we go outside, we are also going into a different type of classroom. And what are we looking for? We need to model, we need to teach how to look. It's not a matter of just going outside and coming back in. You can do that pre-activity to introduce this is we're going to go for a walk outside, then we're going to come back in. What did you see? And you might have a lot of shrugging shoulders, I don't know, sky, grass, playground, just generic responses. But we need to teach our students what to look for. What did you notice? What did you hear? What did it smell like? What did it feel like? And that's part of the walking curriculum, is using our senses. Part of the walking curriculum is teaching students the purpose of journaling. So sketchnoting. I know as a district, we've done a lot of co-taught lessons on sketchnoting and how to capture students' understanding, knowledge, thought patterns in a journal. And we use journal, and we have been using journaling techniques for many, many years. But what the purpose of a journal is that sometimes you don't need to have language. You can just simply either use home language or you can use visuals to capture your understanding, your thinking, your observations. A journal is a living document. A journal is a place to collect your work over a period of time. It becomes your portfolio. It is very, very low risk because you're not having to fill in a worksheet. You're not having to use specific language. And then once the students have captured their understanding, their observations, their learnings, their experiences, then we can add language to that. So prior to going outside, we need to make sure our students, we set the boundaries, we set the expectations, we show them, we teach them, we model to them. What are we going to do when we go outside? What are the expectations in this new environment, in this new classroom? You have here on my slide, we're going to undo the beliefs that outside is non-instructional time. And we're going to be very intentional in what we're looking for the first few times we go outside. We're going to give them the focus, the purpose, the look fors when they're going outside. And so as we do with anything that we introduce new to our students, we do some pre-teaching. We set them up for success. We give them the opportunities to experiment and explore. And so giving them journals, a journal does not have to be, you don't have to go buy a journal. It can be 5 or so pages of paper stapled together, folded and stapled together in the middle, and that becomes their journal. It doesn't have to be anything big or formal, but we need to teach them how to sketch. We need to talk about the lines. We need to talk about texture. We need to talk about warming up our sketch, doing warm-up sketches or quick sketches. Blind contour sketches. Blind contour sketches is that you sit and you look at a partner, but you're just looking at the partner and you're sketching. You can't look down on the page. Or maybe you're looking at a flower and sketching a flower. Again, you're not looking down on the page. And they start laughing and giggling because when they finally do look down on their page, they're going to see some really interesting images. Quick sketches are like those 1-minute sketches where you take a piece of paper and you divide it into 4 or 6 boxes. And then I would start off with 4, depending on the age of your students. And basically, you're going to look to the north, south, east, and west and do 1-minute sketch looking north. Anything that catches your eye, you have 1 minute to sketches. Then we're all going to pivot and we're going to look east. And these are just quick sketches just to get our hands and our minds going. And body shapes, we're going to teach our students how to look for shapes within objects. Whether you're looking at an individual body, whether you're looking at an animal, whether you're looking at structure, what shapes do we see? Do we see squares? Do we see triangles? Do we see rectangles? By looking at shapes, we are, as our students are getting older, many of us would hear, I can't draw, I can't sketch. And so by looking and breaking it down into smaller chunks, having the quick sketches, the blind contour lines, the body shapes, we are looking at small pieces at a time where they can feel successful. One of my favorite books that I would, because Kim is such a literacy person, so she'd be so proud of me right now, is Peter H. Reynolds' book, Ish. This is my favorite book to use when I'm journaling because it doesn't have to look like a vase or a house. It can look vase-ish, house-ish, as long as you try. And there's the book here on this slide. Once it loads, here we go. It's Friday. And so another literacy connection is Noticings. Noticings is a great book to use. What do we notice outside? It's a great picture book. And so here's a quick summary. This is a story about noticing the little things, the grand things, the imaginary or hidden things. Things are waiting to be known, discovered, and recognized. This story encourages readers to pay attention, make new discoveries, and to explore the unknown. And so anytime we make connections to literacy, it provides another access points for our students. And then a guided walk is one of the walks that's mentioned in Jillian's books. We're looking for objects as we're walking along. What objects do you see? And if you go for a walk after lunchtime on the playground, you're going to notice a lot of objects laying around, from jackets to lunches to whatever you can imagine. And again, you can do those 1-minute sketches. And sometimes we could look at, okay, those objects that we found, are they alive or are they not alive? Maybe the ones they used to be alive. And so right now in springtime is a great opportunity to get our students outside and to start noticing. With the walking curriculum, it's a great place for our English language learners because, as I mentioned earlier, they are using images in their journals to capture their understanding and to express their observations and their experiences. And then if we attach vocabulary to those, then we're developing vocabulary for our students while they're experiencing this walk, while they are doing the project in the classroom with you, is we are pairing an experience with the vocabulary. As they're working in small groups with their peers, they will take more risks as opposed to sitting in a classroom of 32 students and you ask a question and they're not going to raise their hand and take those risks. But in small groups where it feels like they're just playing, they will take risks, and we're improving that communication skills and we're increasing our content to talk time for our students. So we are not the only voice as teachers in the classroom, but our students' voice matter and our students' voice are leading their learning. We're increasing engagement of our English language learners, and we are using activities within that walking curriculum to introduce our students to the community that they live in. Sometimes our students, all our students, doesn't matter whether English language learners or not, they're spending a lot more times indoors. And any time we can give them to be within their community is a bonus. And so a sense of place is what can change how our students understand the world of which they are part. It can help them reimagine their relationship with the natural and cultural communities they live in. So the community is part of our culture. It's part of the school culture, and it's part of our global culture. And so we are slowly introducing students to their new culture if they're newcomers and helping them make connections to their personal culture that they're coming from as well. And as I said, using the five senses is a great place to start with journaling. And is also part of our curriculum. So you're making great curricular ties here, and it's something that students are experiencing hands-on. On our EAL course site, we have added, especially in Division 1, sentence starters that are connected to your five senses. Another way to capture it is we have created, and we can add the link to this later on. I don't know if we have it linked yet, but you can create on Google a chart or Google a spreadsheet, where you can provide students what are some guiding questions on the for identifying with the senses, with hearing, with listening, with seeing, with smelling. What is some of the vocabulary? You can attach visuals to that vocabulary, and you can attach sentence frames to help them express their observations as well. So whether you have students that are level 1, 2, or level 5, there are many ways for the students to access this and participate and engage in the walking curriculum or any of the activities that we've introduced at this point. And so whether they're beginners, they're using their gestures, they're labeling, they're drawing, they're filling in the blanks, they're using home language. And then as we're moving along in their language proficiency, then they're maybe creating projects, maybe they're creating models, maybe they're making connections themselves, designing products, teaching others. What if we were to debate a topic? So whether they're, as I said, level 1 and 2, 3, 4, or 5 in their language proficiency on the benchmarks, everything we've introduced so far in those high impact strategies, we've offered opportunities that all students can access the content. And we are now getting towards the last section of our session where we're talking about assessment and feedback. But this particular feedback here is we're focusing on the feedback you give in journals. Your students' journals are their journals. And so we highly encourage that you don't write in their journals, but that you make your comments and you model some sketchnoting techniques on sticky notes. You encourage them to provide peer feedback and self-reflection as well. And you give them opportunities to share. And that when we look at the benchmark, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, not one area is weighted heavily more than the other. It's equally weighted. And so your students' sketches, the writing should not be weighted more than their images as well. And so this journal is excellent opportunity for formative feedback and for summative feedback. And as I said, we encourage peer feedback, but we need to teach what a peer feedback is. And using the tag method is tell something you liked, ask a question, and give a positive suggestion. And that is linked right there that you can use in your classroom. And the next slide, these are all links for you to bring indoor natural explorations. So when it's blizzarding outside and you want to bring the outside inside, take a look at the San Diego Zoo camera, the Toronto Zoo camera, Parks Canada. We see cards are available in all of your buildings right now. You would have received or you're about to receive 2 boxes of these We See cards. So they're nature cards, and within those boxes, there's a booklet, there are QR codes with activities for teachers to do with those cards. So there's many ways where you can bring the outdoors inside. And then looking within the community, here they're all linked here. Some opportunities that are low cost and some are free for you to explore. And then again, more resources, 13 weeks of journaling, Project Zero thinking routines, different sites that you can visit to tap into more information. And here are several resources, more literacy connections that you could make. And if you can't get your hands on these books in your Learning Commons or through IMC or Insignia, these are also linked here so you can access them and do the YouTube read aloud. But nothing beats like having a book in your hands, an actual hardcover book. So back to our high impact teaching strategies. Here we have touched upon quite a few of the teaching strategies, from using home language to activating that background knowledge, using sentence starters and sentence frames and visuals, and chunking the activities and the instruction for your students. So everything that we're doing, little adjustments, we are hitting those high impact teaching strategies in order your students to feel successful. At this time, I'm going to move it back to Stacy, and she's going to go through some more feedback.
All right, so now we're going to be looking at the formative and summative assessment, and being a little bit more creative and innovative with this piece. So rather than just providing, a sit-down multiple choice test at the end of each subject, or sorry, at the end of each unit or activity, we're going to be looking at different ways that we can gather understanding of students' knowledge on the topic, whether it's through performance tasks, games or talk time activities, or chat stations. So here you'll see we've actually showcased one of the performance tasks that are available on the Alberta Assessment Consortium, and that's something that we all as teachers in the district have access to. This one is focusing on grade 2 science and EAL, and it's looking at creating the nature guide. It provides you with the task descriptions, some blackline masters to go along with it. It does chunk it slightly. However, there are some EAL considerations that you do need to make even before providing this to a student or presenting it to a group of students in your class, is looking at background knowledge or cultural knowledge, depending on, again, the student's background experience. Have they had opportunity to go out hiking or be in nature sites where there might be some of these guides available? So what this task is asking students to do is to create an interpretive sign. So even for our Canadian-born native English speakers, some may not have ventured out into the mountains yet and have not seen this, have not seen an interpretive guide, a field guide. And so this might be a great opportunity to, pull out some images, some visuals, some examples of even brochures or guides to the mountains that they might be able to kind of have a bit of an understanding, some foundational starting point, at least, to where they might be going with this. Again, you also want to ensure that the task that you are giving your students, especially your EALs, is not unintentionally creating barriers for them. So some of the vocabulary you can see from even this task created by the Alberta Assessment Consortium does have some barriers where there are some high complexity in language that some of our EAL students may not be able to access. You could use AI to be able to help you take some of these chunked pieces of the activity, put it into Copilot and ask Copilot to pull out some of that tiered vocabulary. And that's something that could really be helpful and a bit of saving a bit of your time as well, so that you can really focus in your time on the teaching aspect. Also really important for all our learners to really chunk the instructions and be very clear with the instructions. So I would not necessarily give something like this out in one go. I would maybe break it up and little by little introduce it with visuals, models, modeling for the student what a final representation of this interpretive sign might look like as well, and what needs to be included. So those exemplars. On the next slide here, you'll see that we're also really supporting students in doing some talk time activities. And that's getting students up and about in the classroom, engaged, facilitated engagement at different stations through different games. For our EAL students, the considerations are to really include some of that front loading of vocabulary, maybe some word banks at each of the stations, or some sentence frames, sentence starters, so that even your level 1 student can talk through or engage in the conversation or the game. We have a lot of great examples up on our EPD site with some links to take you to the specific breakdown of each of the games. And at the bottom of this slide, you'll see that we have something called chat stations. And this is taking students from a seating position up and moving about the classroom. And on the next slide, we will be looking at games where, of course, students are up and about at the classroom, maybe laying on their tummies on the floor somewhere. But this is a game actually that was taken from the Stepping into Science website, and it's completely linked to the curricular outcomes of the science curriculum. For our EAL students, there is some really good vocabulary that's embedded within it. The considerations you would want to make here are front loading some of the vocabulary, like those subject specific: carnivore, herbivore, omnivore, even some of the food information that students might be needing to engage in this fun activity with their peers: twigs, meat, vegetables, and sentence frames to participate. Keeping also in mind that, again, depending on where students' journeys have led them, they may not have actually had an opportunity to engage in sort of spinning games like this. And so maybe modeling the process of the game so they're not confused and that becomes the barrier, but instead they are engaging in the curricular and benchmark outcomes that support their learning needs. And we put in advocacy statements here because this is something that we want to embed throughout any of our lessons, even our, very casual activities in the classroom, is opportunities for our EALs to be able to, share their thoughts, their ideas, their wants, likes and dislikes, to be able to say, I need help. I don't understand. It's my turn. It's your turn now. Or, hey, you skipped my turn. So these are things to really keep in mind to give them that opportunity to feel supported and comfortable and confident. And again, as Dina and Kim mentioned, these opportunities are really low risk. It lowers that affective filter so students can really have the opportunity to take a risk in their language and take a risk in their learning, and maybe, get some modeling from their peers and build upon each other's knowledge. On our next slide, we are going to look a little bit at chat stations, and they're so important because, as I mentioned, it's getting students up and above, and research does up and about, and that research really does showcase that supports some of that whole body learning. It makes connections in the brain that otherwise students may not have had if they're just sitting at their desk and not able to really engage that way. It gives them the opportunity for that emotional engagement. So students really do enjoy this activity because they're talking with their peers, which increases that engagement, that retention. You may overhear some of the students kind of teaching other peers, so really building upon their knowledge and understanding. And sometimes when students hear from someone outside of us, it connects a little bit better. So that's a great opportunity for them. And then, of course, that connection to background knowledge. We know our brains work really efficiently when there's new learning and it's linked to prior learning. So being very intentional and mindful of how you create these chat stations. We do have templates available for you, some of the actual tools you may need for it, and some ideas around chat stations that you can have in the classroom for all subject areas and at different sort of themes. And on the next slides here, we also have included, so there's that chat station board that you can access that gives you a variety of options and some more description around it. And we did mention also to the Project Zero, where you can have a few, thinking routines that might help you in kind of setting up some prompting questions or thoughts for each of the stations. Some of the additional ideas we're going to look at here. So we have created a few chat stations for you. We have here a visual that we took from the Stepping into Science curriculum. Or website rather. And this might be a question where you are posing for this station, what are the impacts of human and animal, animal on human, environment on person, and person on the environment, as well as on animals. This might be an opportunity for students to just do, I think, I see, I wonder, and have them engage in that way. Okay, so we here, we have created actually the chat stations for you. So that will be available for you. You can see right here, Kim is opening it up. We've embedded some of those sentence frames tiered appropriately for your beginner, your intermediate and advanced students, your EALs. We've included some of that compare and contrast, the sentence frames there for that engagement in language, some of the graphic organizers that you might use at the station, and then also a would you rather. So looking at, the caterpillar and butterfly life cycle, how it moves through it, and where students might feel they would prefer to be and why. One of the last chat stations that we wanted to bring to your attention is one that is not very it kind of blends the traditional with a little bit more progressive. So we're looking at taking a worksheet that is from the Stepping into Science website, and rather than just giving it to a student and completing it on their own at their desk, let's make it into a chat station. And so we did that here. This would be something, the actual worksheet you post at the chat station. You might front load some of that vocabulary, draw out some of the subject specific, some of the, tier 2 abstract vocabulary like the label, draw, and give, synonyms for them. So students actually know what they are doing rather than, being met with that barrier and kind of being stalled and stuck. And then providing students with that opportunity to actually engage with peers to complete this, quote unquote worksheet, but now it's at a chat station. So it's more of a talk time opportunity and building knowledge that way. So again, through these chat stations, the performance tasks, the, talk time activities and games, something fun, exciting, engaging, new and innovative really does target the high impact teaching strategies by using the sentence starters and frames, the structured talk time, chunking content and instructions, and activating and building background knowledge. And so the last few slides here, we're just going to reference some of the resources again that would be really helpful for you all. The Stepping into Science website, if you haven't yet accessed that or visited that website, please do, because as our team, we are also discovering every day there's something new we've discovered, and so helpful to building activities. And they're ready to make stuff as well, so that you can just print off and kind of go. They are available grade 1, 2, 3. They're working on the Div 2 components as well to support you in your classrooms. And then again, in that website, here's an example of the interactions with the theme we were focusing on today, interactions of living things. So there's lesson plans here, key terms for students, teacher background information that you can click on, and they're ready to go. Even the teaching toolkit at the bottom is really, really helpful. Many of your schools had, worked with this a little bit around COVID, maybe had that free access to it at the time, but maybe haven't really looked at it since then, or maybe, you know, maybe some of your classes have and others have not, but it would be really beneficial to take a quick peek and maybe bring it to your admin. It's the ELE website. It was formerly known as the ESL library. It's amazing. We here have pulled a few pieces that would really help you in some activity building, chat stations, word wall building that was just available there. There's videos there as well. They offer leveled lessons on various themes. You would just plug in a topic or a theme and it would generate a number of what it has in its bank. It helps to build some background knowledge for your students, front load some of that vocabulary, allow you to kind of be intentional with that vocabulary and how to connect them with visuals. And then the videos here do allow you to change or access subtitles, which are just in English, but that might be something for many of our students. They need that piece, the slower pace as well, to just process and take in, because there is that cognitive load of taking in information in English, translating it in home language, translating back in English to be able to produce or share their knowledge on. So this is a great website to access as well. And then always, if you haven't subscribed to it, we have our EAL newsletter, and we put that out every month with some great resources, some tools, some PG opportunities, and information around some of the international events and supports that would help your EAL students in the classroom. So finally, before this long weekend begins for everybody, we want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. It's always wonderful to see some new names in our chat here. And if you, as Dina said earlier on, if there's any questions that come to mind now, when you get, please don't think about anything about school over the weekend. But if you do, you know, something pops in your mind, maybe table it, keep it ready for Tuesday morning, and you can send it out to us at any time. It doesn't have to be specifically your EAL consultant for your school, but any one of us would be happy to support you with supporting your EAL students. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful long weekend, a safe long weekend with friends and family. We will remain here for a little bit in case there are any questions that come up in the chat, whether you want to type them in or just unmute and ask us directly. Thank you. We will also stop the recording at this time, so you are aware, you are aware of that.